The Best in the World podcast with Richard Parr.
Hello and welcome to the Best in the World. Yes, it's another week where we can learn from the greatest athletes on the planet. Olympic champions, world champions, former world record holders and former world number ones are all on the Best in the World because we want to improve our everyday lives by getting the tips from the very best people on the planet. This week I'm speaking to the Olympic rowing champion Matt Langridge. Matt finally won gold at the Rio 2016 Olympics, part of the British crew that won the men's eights. He spoke about his whole journey because he won silver at the 2008 Games in Beijing and then bronze in the 2012 Games in London. And he tells me on this podcast that after London 2012, he almost quit the sport completely. But he's pretty pleased that he didn't, as he's now an Olympic champion and he's now on the Best in the World with Richard Parr. What an honour that is. It's a really fun chat. We talk about a whole range of things, how his life has changed since winning gold, does he miss the intense training, who he looks up to as role models. We also discuss his love of Liverpool and his music playlist. So much in today's fantastic Best in the World with the Olympic rowing champion Matt Langridge. Go and listen to that. Just before we get to the interview, I want to tell you that today's podcast is brought to you by Audible. They are the leading supplier of audiobooks in the world, 180,000 titles for you to choose from, and you can check out their service for free for 30 days. And in fact, they'll throw in a free audiobook for you to try out. It's a product I personally use, so give it a try. Just go to audibletrial.com/best. That's audibletrial.com/best to check out their service. You get a free audiobook, so why not give it a go? All right, let's get to my interview with Matt Langridge.
The Best in the World podcast with Richard Parr.
Matt Langridge, Olympic rowing champion, welcome to the Best in the World. You had that amazing success becoming champion in Rio in August. How has it been since then? Has it all sunk in yet?
I'm not sure it has really, to be honest. I think it's all been quite a surreal experience since the Olympics. Certainly the immediate emotion after the race was almost disbelief that this big goal that I'd been working for so long I'd finally achieved, and then it's just been an absolute whirlwind since then with media and events and just I don't feel I've had time fully yet to let it sink in, and I think it's something that is probably going to take me a couple of months more to do, and then maybe when the hype of the Olympics has fully died down, then I can kick back and take stock of it all, really.
Do you enjoy this period? Because obviously when you're training for Olympics, you go through a specific routine and you're working really, really hard, and now you don't have to do it. Do you like this time, or do you kind of miss that workload, that schedule?
There's definitely a lot of fun things we've done since then. But yeah, in some sense, we spend so long in that bubble training and doing that daily routine of being told when to get up, when to eat, when to sleep, when to train, what to do, that becomes what you're familiar with. And definitely this is out of the norm for us. And there are times where you do feel a little bit lost, and you do crave that routine, that stability that rowing gives you. But equally, it is nice to be a bit more relaxed and do the fun events that normally we don't get to do. With rowing, training takes over, and we might get invited to things, but quite often we have to turn them down and we're not able to do them. But so it's quite nice to have the time to do them and actually go and enjoy them and enjoy the reward of the hard work we've put in.
Well, I'm glad you've made time to be on the Best in the World today. Really appreciate that. What has been your favourite thing you've done since Rio then, out of all of those events?
I think one of my favourite things was I got invited down to Anfield. I'm a Liverpool fan, so I got down and I got hospitality in the Legends Lounge. I got to take my dad, which is great. And we got to meet all the a lot of the ex-players. Got to meet Ian Rush, Gary McAllister, and then we got to go down on the pitch and got introduced to the crowd. And yeah, I mean, it's great. As we were leaving, we got a standing ovation from the Kop. And I think being a Liverpool fan and growing up and going to the matches, to actually get to stand there and, I said, get your own standing ovation from the Kop, I think for me was incredible. And I mean, that was a great feeling. But then there's also been things. I mean, I've had 4 parades. Probably the highlight for me out of the 4, I had a parade in Henley. I've had a parade in Northwich. We had the Manchester parade and London parade, and I think definitely the Northwich one as well for me was a real highlight. Again, being in my hometown, and again, it's just a very surreal experience, and you're never really sure how to take it and what to do. But it's great to kind of be back in your hometown and have all these people that kind of have heard of you and to come out and celebrate the achievement you've done. But again, like I said, it's always very weird. You don't know how to take it. You don't know how to handle it because it's not something we're kind of familiar with, and it kind of all comes at once. But I think you've got to take everything in stride, and yeah, it's all been really good fun, and just make the most of it really, because it definitely won't last forever.
Yeah, that must have been absolutely amazing, in particular at Anfield with the Kop all standing. I'm a Liverpool fan as well, Matt. Who is your favourite player?
Case, you know exactly how what it must mean then.
Who is your favourite player? Who are the kind of the sports stars from Liverpool, and we'll also talk a bit more in general as well that you've looked up to, that you've admired, that you've almost wanted as a role model?
I think for me, obviously, initially when I first started supporting Liverpool, obviously it was the early 90s. So obviously, obviously Ian Rush was a big one to begin with. Obviously, being such a great striker, you naturally look up to the players that scoring the goals. I think it's the natural thing. But then obviously with Steven Gerrard and all those guys, there's been so many great players at Liverpool over the time that I think at the moment it's brilliant to watch. I'm really enjoying having an actual chance to sit down and watch the Premiership because they're flying and they're playing so well. It's such great football that it's nice to actually have the time to properly sit down and watch all the games and stuff. So. But yeah, definitely as a sportsman, you are a massive sports fan. I'm also really, really into the motor racing, the F1. So I get to watch that when I can. But yeah, I do definitely. I kind of try to watch as many sports as I can, and I do really enjoy sport.
And what did Ian Rush say to you when you got to meet him?
There wasn't anything. One of the nicest things actually was that I got to meet in a more relaxed environment. So it was just general chatting about what I've done and what he's done. And I think a lot of the time when you go to these events that you get to meet people, very often it's such a quick introduction, a bit of small talk, and then you're off, and then you meet the next person. So what was really nice about that day was that we were in the Legends Lounge. We got to relax, and you just get to generally chat about their experience and my experience. And as I said, sportsman and sports fan, I always find it really interesting to hear how other people's experience in other sports. Obviously in Rome we have our set routine, and most of our stories will be pretty similar because it's all driven by the training and by the routine. But then each sport is different. Obviously football is their training program, and they do a lot more games than we do. The whole setup of their sport is different, but everybody's always got the same goal ultimately, and that's to compete and win. So I always find it interesting just hearing what everyone's got to say, and it was really nice because it was a much more relaxed environment and than the usual meet and greet that you do sometimes get when you go to these events.
And that's what we try to do on the Best in the World. We're trying to find out those things which each athlete does in different sports to make them the best at what they do. Now, you mentioned there were differences there between football and rowing. In your chat, did anything come up where there were similarities between the two sports which you didn't necessarily expect?
I mean, I think also. I think football is a very different sport to rowing. I mean, rowing is, as I said, but in terms of the amount of times you compete, it's kind of opposite ends of the scale. They're competing every week, whereas rowing, we do massive amount of training for very little racing. So our kind of schedule is a lot more rigid because it's all building up to this race, whereas football has to be a bit more flexible and fluid because they might have to compete. They might have to have a match in the midweek. They might have to have a match at the weekend. It might be Saturday. It might be Sunday. So in terms of training, they're very much trying to build their training around those matches. And because there's so many more of them, I think in that sense it is quite different. But like I said, I think ultimately with sport, the similarity is always, no matter what the sport is, that we're always trying to compete and we're always trying to be the best at what we do. And yeah, I guess in that sense, they are the same, but then in the way that they achieve them, they're very different.
With that in mind about you doing a lot more training, a lot less competitions and races, we had Brian Clay, the former decathlon Olympic gold medalist, on the show a couple of months ago. And what he said is that he would train so hard, much more hard than he would actually, to a level he would ever reach in competition. So when he actually came to competition, it was actually easier than training. Is that something similar you guys do in rowing? And just how grueling can some of your training sessions be, Matt?
Yeah, I think it is. I think ultimately you always look to deliver your best performance on the day, and that's when but you can only do that by really testing the boundaries in training. I think for us as well, obviously rowing is certainly in the eight, it's a team sport that you've got to go into those races relying totally on each other, and a lot of the time that trust is built from what you've done in training. It's the fact that you've been with the guys, you've seen how hard they're pushed, you know that they're as capable, if not more, of pushing themselves to the absolute limit, and you build that trust in training, and because you have to. And when you go into a race, okay, especially in any boat but a single, you're there, and you know you can only achieve if all 8 of you are really on the same page and prepared to push yourself to the absolute limit. And I think for me, and for us as rowers, we test that limit in training. We don't always simulate an absolute max out race, but we simulate pushing ourselves to the absolute limit in various ways. I mean, we have this, one of my dreaded tests that we do was every Wednesday we would have this half an hour test where it's half an hour on the row machine. The rate is set, but it's basically as far as you can possibly get in that time. And that's where, and we'll do that whether we're at sea level or at altitude. Obviously, the altitude ones are always significantly worse because there's less oxygen. But that is where you build that confidence in yourself and the confidence of the guys around you, just how hard and how mentally tough you can be. And so then when it almost comes to the race, then, well, for me, certainly, I wouldn't think about how hard it was going to be. I think about making sure that I delivered the best I could do technically, making sure that I was really relaxed, because I knew that I wasn't going to, when those questions were asked and when it did get a bit dark in the race and it started to hurt, that I knew I'd push through that, and I knew I'd push through that pain because I'd done it time and time and time again in training. And I think, I wouldn't say it's necessarily easier in training, because sometimes the races you really have to dig deep, but you build that confidence that you know you're capable of doing it, and when it comes, it's something familiar. You know how you're going to react, you know how to push through it, and you know that what you're capable of doing it when it does really hurt. And I said when it gets a little bit dark.
The Best in the World podcast with Richard Parr.
We'll be learning more from Matt in just a moment, but I want to tell you that today's show is also brought to you by Sportacino. Sportacino is a brand new sports breakfast show. It's on Facebook Live, YouTube Live, and on Periscope every single weekday morning from 8 GMT. You can also watch it back on those channels as well. Covers all range of topics with sports, health, fitness, nutrition, and travel, all crammed into 30 minutes, and it's hosted by yours truly. If you get a moment, what I'd love for you to do is to like the Facebook page. That's facebook.com/Sportacino. Or follow us on Twitter at Sportacino. It would really matter a great deal to me if you could do that. That's Sportacino, SPORTUCCINO. They are today's sponsor. All right, let's get back to my conversation with Matt Langridge.
The Best in the World podcast with Richard Parr.
So on those horrible Wednesdays, those dreaded Wednesdays, how much recovery time do you then need for that? Or are you back in the boat the next day? And roughly how many times a week and for how long are you training each week?
So on the Wednesday, unfortunately, so the Wednesday would be a half day. So we'd usually finish that test by about midday. And then we'd have the rest of the afternoon off. And then we'd be back in the boat on the Thursday. We generally train 7 days a week. And we'd get probably maybe a day off, maybe 1 or 2 days off a month. So it's pretty full on. You have to learn how to recover quickly. You spend a lot of time having afternoon naps, trying to recover, and early nights. I think definitely with rowing, that was the big thing as well. I had to learn as well through my career is that the recovery time is almost as important, if not more important, than the training, because that's if you're not getting the recovery in, then the training isn't going to give you the benefit that it should do. We train 7 days a week. We'd start every morning at 7:30. On a Monday, Tuesday, we'd do 3 sessions, so we'd be finished by 4:30, 4 o'clock. Wednesday would be a short day, that would just be 2 sessions, finished by midday. Thursday, Friday would be a 3-session day, so we'd finish by 4 o'clock. Saturday would be a 2-session day, so we'd finish by about 1, and then Sunday would just be a 1-session day. And you'd be out of there by 10:30, 11.
Oof. So, that sounds absolutely exhausting, the fact you get no days off. But is your body always sore, or does it just get used to it?
It never gets used to it. Unfortunately, that's the point of the point of training is to constantly push the body and to get that training effect, you have to stress the body. So just as you think you're getting used to it, it gets increased, and you go back to being sore and tired again. So, I think you get used to being tired. Obviously, rowing does. The training does go in cycles and phases. So there'll be, certainly in the winter is when we do our big mileage, we do a lot of weight. So that's when I guess you're most tired, and obviously it's cold as well. So you do spend a lot of the winter just feeling exhausted. But then as you come to the summer and you come more to racing, you do get a little bit more time, and you get a bit more recovery time, and suddenly you bounce back. And by the time you get to the Olympics, you feel absolutely great and ready to go, and you almost want to do more training going into it because you feel you've got so much energy, and that's the way that Jürgen makes the training so come to the Olympics, you're absolutely on top of your game, and you feel the best you've ever felt in 4 years. But unfortunately, to get there, it means that you spend the rest of that 4 years pretty exhausted and pretty knackered.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it sounds very tiring. Is there anything in particular in your post-recovery routine that you have? Is there anything in particular you drink? Do you have a massage? Do you immediately have a nap? Like, what are you doing almost immediately once you finish training to try and give yourself that best chance of getting good, healthy recovery? I know you mentioned having a nap, but is there anything you eat or massage or anything like that you do?
Yeah, well, I mean, obviously, yeah, I definitely do a lot of sleeping. I'll actually sleep quite often when I'm in full training. I sleep between the sessions, so I would after the first session in the morning, I'd eat, and then I'd probably go and have half an hour, 20 minutes, and we have a kind of crew dormitory at the training centre. You could go and quick sleep in. I'd usually have a sleep straight after when I get back. But then the other thing is I do have a massage. So for me, I always felt that a soft tissue massage kind of helped loosen up my muscles, and so I try and generally have one of them at least once a week. And then the other thing is we kind of really gets drilled into us at an early age is making sure we fuel properly. So if we're doing a weight session, I try and have some milk, and just making sure. I mean, we're really lucky at Caversham that we've got a really great chef called Omar who provides us with great food. So that really takes a lot of the stress out of eating, and we're able to finish a session and straight away go and have a good healthy meal, and we don't have to worry about it. We don't have to think about it. But yes, it's making sure that we're fueling up properly and trying to fuel as quickly as we can after racing. And then the other thing I'd do maybe is every now and again wear some recovery leggings but generally a lot of my recovery strategy was to spend as much time as possible with my feet up. Pretty much.
Yeah, I tried some compression tights the other day. They didn't really do much for me, but then I'm not an Olympic champion rower. Do they really help you, do you think?
I mean, I guess it's one of those things that I don't know really. It might be a placebo effect. I definitely felt that to get the benefit, you'd have to have them quite tight, so they do have to be quite small. But I don't know if it's a placebo effect or whether they genuinely help. I think a lot of it is you're just trying to do everything you can to do the best, to get the best recovery. And if you feel you're doing that, then often it can work. I mean, I wouldn't use them on a regular basis, but in the build up to say a race or an ergo test, a test on the row machine, I would definitely use them just to try and feel like in my head I was doing everything I possibly could to get myself as recovered as I possibly could be, to make sure I performed. So I can't honestly say whether it's a placebo effect or whether, but for me, it just made me feel I was doing that extra bit to make sure I was fully recovered. And so in that sense, I think they did help me, but whether it's a genuine effect or whether it's in my head, either way, I think it did help me. But I think the main thing for me was I felt like I was doing that extra bit to get that extra bit of recovery and doing everything I could to fully be recovered.
On that topic, do you have any particular routines or superstitions which may not necessarily help you, but they're just kind of all part of your process, maybe pre-race or during training? Is there anything which not necessarily most people do, but you do, that helps you perform your best?
Yeah, I think so. I think I wouldn't say I'm superstitious, but I think I've definitely developed a routine that I do build up to a race. I think for me, the main thing is to make it to get a set routine, to make it as familiar as possible. Just certainly when you're going into a big race or a test on a row machine or a big test, when you get nervous, I always find there's comfort in familiarity. So if I was doing something that I'd done time and time again, it just made me more familiar, and it kind of settled my nerves and made me feel a bit more relaxed. So I, even to the point where I would listen to a playlist that I'd developed, and it would just be the same playlist, the same songs. I mean, it was only 4 songs, but I would listen to them for about 20 minutes, just under 20 minutes before, as part of my routine. And just the fact it was the same 4 songs that I'd heard over and over again made it, even when I was out in Rio, even if I was in Rio, it felt like it was the same routine that I'd done when I was at Caversham or when I was racing Lucerne or wherever I've been in the world doing whatever I was doing. It was just that familiarity. So I definitely developed a set routine that I got like the night before a race and then built in the hours building up to a race. And then no matter what time of day it was, no matter where it was that familiarity that I could feel comfort in.
So I've got to ask, what are those 4 songs, Matt?
They're quite random ones. I don't actually know the names. I've kind of I can't actually remember the names of them. Like I kind of I'm not a big fan of. So before a race, for me, it's not about pumping myself up. It's about it's about almost relaxing myself. Mm-hmm. So it's about keeping myself calm, because I know that when come the race, come being next to somebody, that I'm going to give it all my all. And so for me, it was about trying to be as relaxed as possible going into it. One of them is "Follow the Sun." I can't remember who it's by, but yeah, it's kind of a nice, relaxing, chilled out song. The other one is the Coldplay song "Magic."
Okay.
That's one of the other ones. I think one of them might be the end music to the last scene in Sons of Anarchy. It was I've been watching the series while we've been on training camp, and for some reason I quite like the last song. The very end scene on it, there's a song playing, and I quite liked it and put that in. I think the other one might be another Coldplay song, actually.
Oh, okay.
But they're just generally relaxed, chilled out songs that I just liked, and kind of helps me to feel relaxed going into a race or into a test. I mean, having said that, I'm not superstitious, actually. For the last 3 ergo tests I've done, I've worn the same all-in-one. I don't know why, but I hadn't had a PB on my ergo test, on my rowing machine test for a while, and then this year I've done 3 of them. And after the first one, for some reason, it went really well. But I didn't want to change it again. I didn't want to change anything, so I just made sure on each one I wore the exact same racing suit or rowing suit, whichever you like, all 3 times. But yeah, other than that, I'm not that superstitious. I definitely don't wear the same socks for every race.
Well, I hope you at least washed that suit.
Yeah, no, definitely. I was considering, at one point, wearing it under my GB lycra, under my Olympic lycra for the final, but I thought that might be a bit far and probably wouldn't help me in the best way. So.
Well, you had success anyway, even without that suit, and you've now got the full collection of medals. You got bronze in 2008, silver in London, now gold in Rio.
It's actually the way around. Unfortunately, I didn't do it the perfect way around. It was just silver in Beijing, the bronze in London, and then the gold in...
Okay. Yeah,
sorry. No, it's not the... the bronze is the bit of the step down. It would have been much better if it'd been that way down.
Yeah, I was gonna ask about that. So on each of those achievements, did they feel like success, or were you going for gold and it felt like disappointment? How did each of those medals feel?
Well, the gold obviously felt like success, because we couldn't have done any better. But yeah, the bronze and silver definitely for me was disappointment. I've kind of, over the time, I've learned to live with them and appreciate them. But in some ways, for me, I know this sounds awful, but they represent failure. And I know I've tried to explain. Obviously, a lot of my friends and families find it really hard to understand, because, as far as they're concerned, it's such an amazing achievement that I've got an Olympic medal, and I've definitely learned to appreciate that. But for me, in each of those races, we went for the gold, and the bronze and silver isn't the gold. And no matter how we look at it, we didn't achieve what we wanted to achieve. And it's sometimes it's hard to explain how. I think sometimes my friends and family start being a bit grumpy and overly critical, but when you aim so hard for that one thing and you don't quite get it, no matter, you learn to appreciate that, okay, we got close and still that's good, but it's still not quite what you wanted. So okay, it's nice to have the whole set. I'd still be lying if I didn't say I'd much rather 3 gold medals rather than the bronze, silver, and gold. But it's definitely something that you learn to appreciate, and in that sense, for me, then maybe it made the Rio gold medal more special, that I'd got so close twice before, and then to finally achieve the gold medal, and also feel like it was something that I'd got close and not quite come off, but I'd stuck at it and worked harder and changed things, and it hadn't come easily. So in some ways, the bronze and the silver definitely helped to make the gold in Rio that much more sweeter. And I mean, ultimately in rowing, that we never go into it for fame and fortune. It's not a sport that necessarily brings that. But so for us, it's all about the satisfaction of knowing you've worked really, really hard for something and you've achieved it. And I think for me to have stuck at it over all that time, when there's been that disappointment of going for the gold and not quite coming off. I mean, London for me was certainly a massive disappointment, because not only were we going for the gold medal, we were going for the gold medal in London. And that kind of, I guess as an athlete, to not many people get a chance to go for a gold medal, but even less people get a chance to go for a gold medal in your home country. So I was very lucky that I was one of very few Olympians to ever get that chance to at home games go for the gold medal, and when it didn't happen, there was that definite feeling of, well, that's you can go to another Olympics, but you'll never get that chance again. So I definitely found that really probably the hardest to take, and it took me a long time to get over it and get remotivated and decide that, I mean, for a long time I was unsure whether I wanted to carry on. I didn't know if I could take any more disappointment, and it definitely took me quite a while to rally myself and realise, actually, you know what, I do still feel like I've achieved this, and it's what I really want to do. And I mean, it probably took me a year. I think after London, I kind of went back to training in January. I was training, but for some reason, when I came to racing, I never really had that edge. I felt like I wasn't quite the same athlete. I wasn't maybe as hungry in the races as I'd been before. And then it was only actually at the World Championships the following year when I was in the double, and we hadn't done very well. It was my worst result ever at a World Championship. We'd come ninth overall. And because the B finals had been rowed the day before, then I was sat there watching the A finals, and I was sat there, and then the 8 went on and won. They became world champions, and it was only sitting there watching them do it that gave me the motivation of, that's actually what I really want now. I really believe I'm capable of doing that, and it is worth the risk of another 4 years because I do believe I can do it, and fortunately it all paid off.
Yeah, amazing how those setbacks can just help propel you further forward, and ultimately you did reach that goal. So what is next for you, Matt?
Well, at the moment I'm just taking a little bit of time out of rowing. So I think for me, I haven't fully decided, but I think it's unlikely I'll do Tokyo. I haven't made a final decision yet. I haven't officially retired, or I think I just want to take a little bit. There's no rush. There's 4 years, so I'm going to take a little bit longer to fully make my mind up. But I think it's unlikely I'll do Tokyo. And what I'd actually really like to do ultimately is be a pilot.
Oh wow!
Yeah, I've always wanted to fly, and rowing not in a bad way, obviously, but it's kind of always got in the way of that. So now that I'm thinking about my next career, I feel very lucky that I've managed to make a career out of the sport I originally took up as a hobby. So I don't know. I kind of feel, well, I may as well push my luck and see if I can do another job that I've always wanted to do, and I think I really enjoy. So that's what I'd love to do, and that for me would be my next gold medal.
Oh,
so
wow.
I think definitely you feel as a sportsman, when you finish one challenge, you're always looking for the next one, and that for me, hopefully getting in the cockpit and flying planes would be the next kind of gold medal, and that's the next target.
Wow. And, on this show, I've had so many different guests and Olympic champions who've gone on to do absolutely amazing things. Like John Potter won gold in hockey in 1988. He's now the chief marketing officer for Moet Chandon Champagne. We've got Tanni Gray-Thompson. She went into the House of Lords. We had Kaylee Gilchrist recently. She's a Olympic water polo player, just won gold in Rio like you, and she's now going on the world tour of surfing. It's amazing what some of you Olympic champions can do when you put your minds to it. Is there anything you think you've learnt from rowing and everything that you've done in the last 15, 20 years, which you think will help you in this possible new career as a pilot?
Yeah, I think so. I think definitely when I look at when you look at the job description, there's a lot of things. I mean, the first thing is like, oh, can you cut well under pressure? Well, yeah, I can tick that box because I think the pressure of the Olympics is a pretty significant pressure. And can I work well in a team? Well, I'd like to think I can work well in a team. I've obviously with rowing it is a big team sport, and but I think ultimately the biggest thing is that kind of motivation and drive to set yourself that goal and then really believe you can achieve it and really go 100% for it. And not always, I think sometimes there is, when you go into these things, there is the fear of failure. And because of that, you don't give it 100%. But I think what I've learned from rowing as well, you've got to give it, if you don't give it 100%, you'll never achieve it, and you'll never, but also if you don't achieve it, you'll never know what you could have done if you had given it 100%. And I think for me, it's more than anything, it's the determination to really stick at it. And there will be failures along the way, and there will be disappointments. And I mean, in rowing, my story definitely isn't a path of success. I was successful as a junior. I obviously was very I kind of got into rowing quite easily. I got very early success. I won the Junior World Championship, so I was clearly quite talented. But then from then to finally winning the gold medal, there was a lot of disappointments along the way. And I realised through that time I had to really, just talent wasn't going to be enough. It wasn't going to be enough to get me to where I wanted to be, and it was just going to take a lot of hard work. And there are definitely disappointments along the way, but from every disappointment you learn something, and it makes you stronger. And I think I've definitely learned that from rowing. And so I think there's a lot of times, if I look back at my career along the way, where I could have said, okay, I'm not going to make it, and called it a day. But I think ultimately I showed that I was capable of doing it, and it just took more hard work and more perseverance. And if you do that, eventually you'll get to where you want to be. And I think that's definitely what I can take out of rowing. And hopefully it won't take me as long to get in the cockpit. Otherwise, I might be quite an old pilot by the time I actually get in the cockpit. But yeah, I think definitely for me, the same thing. I'm sure there's going to be times where there'll be in my next career or in life. There's always going to be setbacks, and you just got to kind of still believe in yourself and keep persevering.
Well, I wish you all the best with that, Matt. It's been so great to talk to you today. There's been so much to cover and probably not enough time because there's so much more we could talk about. But Matt, just before you go, could you let our listeners know how they can continue to follow you on Twitter and social media, and so we can continue to learn about your journey and hopefully see you become a pilot as well, please? And also anything else you'd like to mention or promote on the show.
Yeah, sure. I mean, I think if people like to follow me on Twitter, it's Matt Langridge 8. It's at Matt Langridge 8. And yeah, I mean, I think for me, I guess the only other thing I'd want to mention for any inspiring sports star out there, I was originally inspired by the Olympics. I originally got into rowing by watching Steve Redgrave and Matthew Pinsent win the gold medal in Athens, and that was what first made me realise that rowing was a sport. So the great thing about the Olympics is every 4 years you get to see all these sports, and I think for any kids out there listening, or in fact anyone out there listening, I would always say go and try as many sports as you possibly can, because the great thing about sport is there's so many of them, and you don't know which one is going to suit you and that you can enjoy and be competitive in unless you try them. So I definitely recommend anyone try them. But yeah, if anyone would like to follow me further in my career, then if you follow me on Twitter, or I'm not as good as some of the others on social media, but I try my best.
I'm sure you do great. Matt, it's been so great to talk to you. Thank you so much for your time today, and thank you for being the best in the world.
Thanks a lot. It's really nice to speak to you.
The Best in the World podcast with Richard Parr.
Well, if you enjoyed that chat with Matt as much as I did, you can also learn from other rows on The Best in the World with Richard Parr. We've interviewed Mahe Drysdale from New Zealand. We've interviewed Heather Stanning. We've interviewed Etienne Stott. All great interviews on The Best in the World. Go back and listen to the back catalogue. It's on iTunes, it's on Stitcher, and it's on the website richardparr.net. Check them all out. And then even if you want to listen away from rowing, we've got other great guests as well. Perhaps you enjoy snooker. You can listen to Stephen Hendry. He's been on the podcast. Maybe you like MMA. Ken Shamrock has been on the show. That's a fantastic chat with him. Very controversial. You might want to go and listen to that one. We've also had Veronica Campbell-Brown. Lots of top great guests and amazing athletes that you can learn from to help improve your everyday life or your sporting ambitions. This is the perfect show to do that. If you've got any feedback for the program, send me a message on Twitter. I'm at Richard_Parr. Maybe send us a comment on the website, richardparr.net. I'd love to hear from you. And if you are listening on iTunes, press the subscribe button and give me a rating and review. It really matters a lot. You know, the rating can be anything, the review can be anything, but just please get involved. Tell me what you like, tell me what you don't like, and we can help improve the show. If there's a particular guest you'd like me to interview, let me know who you'd like to hear from, because that's what we love to do on the show. We love to learn from the very best. I've got another amazing guest for you on next week's Best in the World. It comes out every single Wednesday on iTunes, on Stitcher, on richardparr.net. Check it out. Hope you're having a great day, and I'll speak to you next Wednesday. Take care.
The Best in the World podcast with Richard Parr.